Welcome to the Deep Dive.
The show where we take some really complex documents, dense ideas, and sometimes pretty radical blueprints.
And we turn them into what we hope is the most fascinating conversation you'll have this week.
And today we are going way back in time.
We are. Specifically to 1938, to look at a document called the Energy Certificate, which was published by a really influential and, I have to say, controversial movement of the era, Technocracy Inc.
Oh, this one is a wild one. And it's not just some, abstract economic theory. This is a full-on blueprint for social engineering.
Designed by whom? Not politicians.
No, by scientists and engineers. And they genuinely believed they had a non-political, a purely mathematical solution to the chaos of the Great Depression.
So our mission today is to really get inside their system and understand it. A completely non-monetary technological administration proposed for the entire North American continent.
Yeah, let's start with the basic premise, because everything else builds from there.
Okay, so technocracy starts with this core historical observation. They argue that for almost all of human history, we lived in an era defined by one thing: scarcity.
Right. And if you live in scarcity, where goods and resources are fundamentally rare, then the system we all know, the price system, it works.
More or less.
More or less.
Yeah.
Using money, barter, the whole concept of value. It's a functional way to allocate those scarce resources.
But according to the technocrats, something completely changed with the Industrial Revolution. Technology, they said, pushed us into a totally new stage of development.
A high-energy civilization.
And what did that new civilization create?
Abundance. For the first time, really. They looked around and saw machines, power grids, mass production, all capable of producing way more goods and services than the population could consume.
Or at least more than they could consume under the old price system.
And that's the fatal problem they identified. That's what the whole movement was about.
Man had solved the technical problem of creating abundance. We built the machines, we harnessed the power.
But we completely failed to solve the technical problem of distribution.
The system was just jamming up.
Yeah.
I mean, why were people starving right next to overflowing silos?
Because the distribution system, the price system, is based entirely on price. And price, they argued, is just. It's an unmeasurable factor.
What do they mean by that?
It's not based on physical reality. It's determined by human opinion, speculation, fear, corporate leverage.
Not by any scientific metric.
Exactly. So if your whole control system is based on human emotion, then any kind of effective long-range social planning is totally impossible.
Which is why they proposed this radical shift. You have to ditch politics, ditch economics.
And apply pure physical science to the distribution of all goods. They wanted to replace what they saw as chaotic political and economic control with a disciplined technological administration.
So, no more government.
Just highly specialized scientific management of the continent's resources.
Okay, that brings us right to Section 1, this foundational idea of replacing the squishy, subjective concept of value with an objective measurement.
Energy cost.
Yes.
This is their core discovery, or at least how they presented it. After analyzing, every commodity and service on the continent, they concluded there is only one common denominator for everything.
From powering a city
to manufacturing a single pencil. And that denominator is energy.
So they're trying to swap out the basic unit of wealth. Not the dollar, which is speculative, but a unit of physical work.
Yeah.
An erg or a kilowatt hour.
Precisely. They wanted to move from financial valuation, which asks, what is this worth to someone, to technological mensuration.
Which asks what?
Which asks, how much energy did it physically cost to produce this? The plan was conceptually pretty simple. Measure all the energy used by the continent, measure the energy cost of every single thing.
And then use those measurements to regulate everything, production and distribution.
You mentioned the term extraneous energy there. Let's pause on that because it's a key concept.
It is. What does that really mean?
It's all the energy that comes from non-human sources. So coal, gas, hydroelectric power, and so on. They used that specific term to highlight the huge gap between human muscle and machine power.
And their point was that by 1938, North America had the highest average consumption of this extraneous energy per person of anywhere in the world.
And that detail is crucial because they weren't just saying the system was a good idea. They were saying it was mandatory, specifically for the North American context.
Why there?
Because North America, in their view, was the first continent to physically cross that threshold from scarcity to abundance. It had the resources, a relatively homogeneous population, and this vast, complex technological grid.
So the physical reality demanded a technological response.
A response that came in the form of 4 non-negotiable technological imperatives.
This is where the engineers really take over the social agenda.
It is. The first was the continuous substitution of kilowatt hours for man hours.
In other words, always be automating.
Always. Less human labor, more machine power.
The second imperative was about the scale of thinking, wasn't it?
Yes. Greater integration of physical equipment. The technocrats said you can't just design parts anymore. Don't build one dam.
Design the entire continental hydrology.
Exactly. Don't run a bunch of separate power grids. Run one unified, super efficient continental power grid.
And the third imperative flows from that. Adopt a technological administration for all social operations. Replace politics with technical competence.
And the fourth one is maybe the most provocative, especially when you think about conservation. They said abundance requires the maximum possible per capita energy consumption.
Wait a minute.
But, and this is the key consonant with maximum resource conservation.
Okay, that sounds like a paradox. How do you have
Yeah.
maximum consumption and maximum conservation at the same time?
Well, it forces you to completely change your manufacturing philosophy. Maximum consumption means the distribution system works perfectly to get goods to people. You eliminate waste, like, farmers dumping milk to keep prices high.
Right.
And maximum conservation means everything you make is built to last. High quality, easy to repair. You maximize the lifespan of every resource.
You're totally eliminating planned obsolescence.
Completely. The goal isn't to make things cheap. It's to make them last forever, while also making sure every person has the energy they need for a high standard of living.
That is profound. But if the price system is gone, and you've met these demands, how does an individual actually get their share of all this wealth?
And that brings us to the energy certificate itself.
The instrument of distribution.
Yes. It's the methodology for their technological accounting, and it's designed to be the physical opposite of money.
So let's get into the calculations. How do they figure out how much is available for people to use?
They start with the total amount of net energy converted for all goods and services. But, and this is crucial, foundational costs are deducted first.
Such as?
All the energy needed for operating, maintenance, replacement, and expansion of the whole continental technological plant.
So the upkeep for all of society's infrastructure is just handled centrally before anyone gets a personal share.
Correct. And that also covers all communal services. Public health, education, high-quality housing for every citizen, local transport, all of it guaranteed.
What about my job? If I work hard in this steel mill, do I get more certificates than someone in, say, a library?
No, and this is the huge philosophical break. The energy of human labor is not included in the calculation.
At all.
Not at all. They figured human energy was less than 2% of the total energy being used anyway. The system completely divorces distribution from work effort. There's no labor theory of value here.
So they're throwing out the foundational concept of Marxian theory in classical economics, which ties human effort to social value.
Gone.
So if it's not based on work, how is the rest of that net energy distributed?
Through a principle they called equal consuming privilege.
Which means?
Every single adult, and they define that as anyone over 25, receives an equal share of the total net consumed energy.
And what about before you're 25?
You get a maintenance allowance. Basically, a guaranteed standard of living from birth.
And they built gender equity right into this 1938 blueprint.
Yes, very specifically. Females receive the exact same amount as males, and it's entirely independent of them. It's designed to give everyone equal purchasing power.
An equal share for everyone over 25, no matter their job or status. That sounds like a utopia of material security. But if you can't save it, you can't build wealth or status symbols, what's the motivation to work?
And that's the point. The engineers just assumed that if you remove the pressure of financial survival, people will work based on their competency and social need.
But the controls are what enforce that.
The controls are everything. This certificate is the opposite of money. It is a meticulously controlled permit for consuming energy.
So let's talk about those strict controls.
It's non-transferable, non-negotiable. It can't be stolen, lost, loaned, or even given away.
Which is huge, because the whole element of gain or loss, which is the basis for almost all property crime.
It disappears entirely.
And the non-cumulative rule, that might be the most radical part. You literally cannot hoard wealth.
Correct. The certificate loses all its validity after a set time period. They thought maybe 14 or 15 months.
So there's a built-in expiration date.
Yeah. It's pressure to maintain consistent consumption, which keeps a consistent load on the production plant. You use it or you lose it.
And it only covers individually consumable items. You don't own the factory you work in or even your own car outright.
No, the means of production are owned by the technate. You just pay for the use of things, like you pay for transportation on a time-distance basis. It eliminates the inefficiency of everyone owning their own industrial-scale equipment.
The moment you make these objects of value non-transferable, non-cumulative, you really do seem to eliminate the basis for so many social problems: crime, charity, philanthropy.
You're not trying to change human nature. You're just changing the physical reality that allows for financial conflict.
The system makes it obsolete. But to do that, to achieve that perfect, planned, balanced load operation,
You need to know exactly what was consumed, by whom, and when.
which brings us to the high-tech tracking system.
And this is where a 1938 document starts to sound incredibly futuristic and, frankly, pretty intrusive.
Walk us through the physical certificate.
Okay, so it was a physical thing, probably a perforated card meant to be read by a machine. And it had immediate identifiers. It was color-coded by age group, below 25, 25 to 45, and over 45.
And it even specified your sex.
Yep. A diagonal line, one direction for female, the opposite for male. So your age bracket and sex were instantly readable on every single transaction.
But the real surveillance, the high-tech control, is in that long code printed across the top.
That's it. It's a massive string of digits for continuous 24-hour physical accounting and inventory.
And what's in that code?
It starts with your registration number, which you get at birth, and the regional division where you live. It links you, the individual, to the whole continental database.
And then it links you to your job.
Directly to your job via a functional classification, a modified Dewey Decimal System, of all things.
And this classification is, it is extraordinarily granular.
It's not just you work in steel. The code defines your exact employment down to the specific unit you work in. The source gives an example, 8.33, 0.16.3.
Okay, break that down. What does that string of numbers mean to the technate?
It means you are in sequence 8, which is iron and steel. Subdivision 33, the steel division. Section 16 is the blast furnace department.
In unit 3,
Is specifically the blowing engine unit. And the rest of the code would show your, say, operator number 11 out of 22 in that unit.
Wow. So your identity is completely inseparable from your exact function in the machine.
Total administrative visibility.
So how does a purchase actually work? Is this like a 1930s debit card?
Basically, you go to a distribution center, you put the certificate into a photoelectric recording machine.
And that machine.
It instantaneously processes the data. It records the time of purchase down to the day, hour, and minute on a 24-hour clock. It deducts the exact energy cost, and it records a precise coded description of what you bought.
So if you bought a pair of shoes, the code would be something like 34.46 11 EMTAR 728.
Which means they were made by the leather sequence. They were men's low shoes, size 11 with E, and it even references the specific last in style number.
That continuous data stream allows for just instantaneous tabulation. What does the technate do with all that data?
It manages the load. It ensures perfect production schedules, sufficient stocks everywhere. It eliminates waste, but the source also stresses. It allows them to trace you.
Right.
If they need to, they can trace an individual's movements and consumption patterns across the entire continent just by looking at their purchases.
That is the chilling, necessary cost of that absolute planned efficiency. A real-time accounting system imagined decades before the first modern computer.
And that's the whole tension, right? For the technocrats, this certificate is just a tool of mensuration, rigid, unbiased measurement. And it automatically gets rid of all the instability caused by financial evaluation.
So no inflation, no compound interest, no fiat money, no corporate leverage.
But what's fascinating is the philosophical fallout. By eliminating the concept of value in objects, they claim that this technology invalidates all existing social philosophies.
All of them.
All of them. They argue that any system, even Marxism, that's built on the moral value of human effort or on the idea of scarcity, it's just rendered moot by guaranteed abundance. If supply is infinite, you don't need a value system.
Which brings us to this incredible analogy they use to close out their argument. It's all about air.
Yeah, they asked a really simple question. Why has air never been part of the price system?
We don't trade it, we don't buy mortgages on it.
And the answer is just that its bounty, its sheer abundance, has never allowed for the creation of demand or the concept of value.
It's just there. It's fundamentally abundant.
So the provocative thought they leave us with is this. The characteristics of air, that it's fundamental, abundant, and economically valueless, can be duplicated with anything else we need.
If you could establish that same level of abundance and put the technological administration in place to manage it,
They weren't trying to make people rich, they were trying to make the very concept of wealth completely obsolete.
it's a truly mind-bending, comprehensive, and very demanding blueprint from the 1930s.
It really forces you to ask, what are you willing to trade in autonomy for the promise of perfect, equitable efficiency?
Thank you for diving into the energy certificate with me.
My pleasure.
We hope this deep dive gave you plenty to chew on. We'll see you next time.